Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your favorite uncle, Uncle C, the uncle you never want to miss. Well, unfortunately, we're actually missing our favorite uncle this afternoon. This is actually Tosin. Uncle C is unavailable today. He's actually moving houses, and as a result, his attention is needed elsewhere. So hopefully, he'll be joining us during the next episode. But today, we still have a special guest in our midst. You guys really enjoyed the previous episode with him. So, by popular demand, we have him back on the episode. Say hello.
Hey guys, what's up? It's good to be here again.
Welcome. We loved having you. We're glad to have you back. And we look forward to the nuggets you'll be teaching us today. There's someone on Twitter.
I loved being here. Someone on Twitter.
There's someone on Twitter that usually delivers nuggets. But I hope your nuggets won't be like those nuggets. I won't be mentioning any names. But
it definitely won't. It won't.
Okay. So, on the last episode, we actually talked about Tyler Perry's A Fall from Grace. We spoke about some of the characters in the movie, explored how they displayed narcissistic tendencies and traits. And so today, we decided we'll be rounding up, our series on narcissism. We've spoken about narcissism in romantic relationships, being in a relationship with a narcissist and what that feels like. However, today, I believe we should be looking at three parts, really. We'll be looking at identifying the traits of a narcissist. It seems like these people can be really slimy and tricky. One minute you think, oh, they're these lovely people that you want to be with. The next, you're in bed with the devil. The second would be looking at is how to get out of these relationships, actually, because even though we look at the traits, we examine the traits, we might still be so unfortunate as to end up in a relationship with one. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be even someone at the workplace. And afterwards, we'll be looking at what it takes to get back to being you, what it takes to heal, what it takes to recover after you get out of this relationship. So there was a character in the movie we talked about last week. Her name was Grace. She was actually the main character, and she had been in... Have you seen the movie, by the way?
Okay, unfortunately, I think I was one of the first people that Uncle C shared the movie with. He asked me to see it. Although I did try, but something happened to my Netflix account. I couldn't actually see any movie at all the whole of last week. I should rectify that very soon. However, I did listen to the podcast where he made his review, and I could actually relate to some of the things. And one of the first things that you mentioned, I think it was Shannon. Shannon being one of the strongest narcissistic characters there. He was very, very superficial from what people described.
Yeah.
The robust build that he had, the voice, and he knew what to say. And something that Uncle C mentioned, was it Uncle C or it was you? You said that it's like they all have a particular playbook that they work from. It is very true. That is why when people talk about their experiences with narcissists, with somebody else that has experienced similar things, it's almost as if they were dating the same person.
Yeah.
So they all work with the same playbook, even without them knowing it.
Sure.
So you wanted to say something about Grace. What were you trying to drive at?
We're talking about Grace's friendship with Sarah. And,
okay,
when you examine that friendship, if you ask me, in the 6 years that Grace had known Sarah, Sarah was a perfect friend. She was such a wonderful person. So it makes me wonder, what could Grace have done, not to fall victim to Sarah's evil? What could she have done to actually identify the different traits? In fact, to start, did Sarah exhibit any traits that Grace could have picked up on?
Okay, it would have been easier to answer that question if I had seen the movie. And from your review, you didn't really say much about what Sarah did. But what I actually picked up was that she was always providing coffee and getting Sarah to talk about herself, right? Or was it tea? Regardless, um, narcissists sometimes they know how to get you because they study you like a PhD degree. They want you to trust them. They
Yeah.
want you to bring down your boundaries. They want you to provide them with every information about you so that when it is time for them to actually manipulate you, they know exactly what button to press and you will just yield. So, um, being that it was a normal friends kind of relationship, not a romantic relationship, it's not going to be as abusive as a romantic relationship because you don't really give so much like that. But one thing is certain: there's something they call narcissistic triangulation or triangulation, where they make you feel like, let's say, in a cluster of friends, let's say three friends, one is a narcissist, and then she has or she or he has two other friends. What the narcissistic friend does is that he makes the other friend hate the other. In fact, it creates a divide between the other two friends, or tries to backbite the other person, telling the other person's secret, or trying to bring the other person down so that the other person is always going to be on their own side and things like that. So another thing that you find yourself doing is you always want to be the better friend out of the other two. I don't know
Yeah.
if you understand what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. So I don't know if that was the kind of dynamic that was going on between Sarah and Grace.
Not exactly, because I
Mm,
mean, like I said, it just really seemed like the perfect friendship of two old women who were maybe otherwise lonely. I mean, Grace was particularly lonely, and that showed, like
mm,
it was obvious.
mm,
While we can't really say that Sarah was lonely, but the reason I infer that is because, as opposed to Church and Grace, we weren't really exposed to any other friendships she had. Even though at the
mm.
end of the day, we did get to find out she was Shannon's mother, so they clearly shared a relationship as well.
Oh, she was Shannon's mother.
Yes, she was Shannon's mother, and she made the introduction
Now,
between Grace and Shannon, actually.
oh, great. Now, that's not to say that it's a complete proof that Sarah was actually a narcissist. Some people could actually raise narcissists without being narcissists themselves. However, there is a larger tendency for people to be, for the parents of a narcissist to also be narcissistic. There's always that huge tendency. Now, who knows? Probably she had always made Shannon, that's her son, right?
Yeah.
She always made Shannon look or feel like he's the golden child.
Sorry, I just feel like I need to point something out. By the way,
Okay.
Sarah was always in on the trick that was being played on Grace. She was in on the scam. She was a part of it.
Okay.
She just
Yeah,
pretended
yeah,
to
yeah.
be a friend.
That's very, very true. You see, some of these movies that we watch, they're actually real life, even though they might be fictitious or fictional. They're actually true because a narcissist, the family of a narcissist are always in on everything. They always know that the target is going to get dumped at some point or the other, or is going to get abused at some point or the other. They know, and they also play their role. Trust me, um, even with my own relationship at the time, they all knew what was going on, and they played their role. They always knew. And one of the narcissistic parents could also, in front of you, they might be all nice and sweet and caring and all those kind, appearing to be, but behind you, they'd be saying very, very insidious things about you to actually devalue you in front of maybe the person you consider as your significant partner, that is the narcissist. And then the narcissist in front of you is probably going to love bomb you, and then but still discredit you also, and also disregard you. You would notice these things later, but not immediately.
I see.
It's not a very easy thing. So that's why when I got out of that relationship, subconsciously I decided that even if I am introduced to the ancestors of the ancestors that I would not bring down my boundaries. I would not trust that easily or that quickly because it was, I think it was when funny enough, it was as if she wanted me to actually meet her parents so quickly. And I was even delaying, but the moment I did, every boundary I had, every reservations I had about her and all those things, I dropped them, I forgot them, and that was when I started giving more. But down the road, I realized that it was the wrong thing to do.
Wow.
Because I wasn't aware.
So clearly, from what you said, there are many traits like that you could use to identify a narcissist, various, and it seems like they might not necessarily exhibit all of them. So which ones or what percentage of the traits would you say, if you identified, you'd have to say this is a narcissist? I mean, so let's say, for example, you mentioned 10 traits. If someone exhibits 2 of those 10 traits, is it enough to call a person a narcissist?
Enough. 2 is not enough. 2 is not enough. It's a pointer, but it's not enough. I think there's something they call the DSM. If anybody has the time, maybe you could actually browse or Google it up, check the DSM. I can't remember the full meaning. I think it's dialectical. I can't remember what it means, but DSM, and then just type DSM and narcissism traits. You would see how they outline the signs. But off the top of my head, I could actually mention a few of them that as I recall, were the things that I should have considered as the red flags or the signs. So things like entitlement, which is very, very key, because if somebody actually thinks that at all times I am entitled to your attention, even though, let's say you have a meeting or a business meeting and they want your attention at that time and they're causing tantrums because you cannot attend to them at that time, or they are behaving childish or behaving in a way that you don't really like because you didn't give them attention at that time. Another thing is they're entitled to either your finances or your money and all those kind of things, or entitled to whatever let's say your belongings. Now let's say family members now, siblings. Some siblings might feel entitled to, let's say, your bedroom or your clothing or your suit, and you don't want anybody to actually wear your clothing, and then they just walk into your room and wear it. I know these seem to be quite basic, but I mean, these are things you should not really overlook. So if somebody could actually do this, so you should start really paying attention to it. So entitlement is one of the signs. So like I mentioned, entitlement, whether for your attention or entitled to your money. I mean, why didn't you give me the money that you earned? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Let's say in a love relationship between a man and a woman, or a boy and a girl, you didn't give me money at the end of this month. You know how our Nigerian babes are like. You didn't give me money at the end of this month, or you didn't give me money to buy my shoe, or you didn't give me money to make my hair, and all those kind of things. And then for the guys, I mean, when did you got money and then you didn't give it to me? You know how I was talking about this particular project, and if I don't get this project done at this so time, or pay so thing, you have the money and you're refusing to give it to me. So I'm talking from the guy's perspective now, a male narcissist. So these are the kinds of signs that you want to actually pay attention to. I mean, seriously, you're a grown-up dude, you're a grown-up gal. Earn your own money. Be responsible for yourself. Do not feel entitled to somebody else's resources. And then, like I also mentioned, time as well. So let's say for the male narcissist, if his partner, who is maybe the codependent or the empath or any other healthy person, let's say she's trying to spend time with her own family, and he's like, I've been off work the whole of today. I'm free today, and then you refuse to actually spend time with me. What kind of nonsense is that? So that entitlement for your attention, for your time, for your resources, for your finances, these are red flags one of the red flags. And then there's also the thing of lack of empathy. You see, um, I heard once that being in a relationship with a narcissist is like looking into a mirror and nothing is looking back at you. Now that's some really, really scary thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you look at a mirror and then you don't see your reflection? You don't, how do you put in love? How do you put in commitment and then you're not getting anything in return?
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it this way. Let's say you've had a very, very difficult day at work. Let's say your boss has been giving you a hard time and then you're expecting, when you get home, you're trying to discuss it with your significant other. But then the significant other is like, I also had a bad day too, and doesn't really validate your feelings,
Yeah.
but then starts talking about his own problems or her own problems as well. Now, another sign is the grandiosity of their thinking, where affiliating with you is meant to actually make them look good. That grandiose thinking, where for me to actually do anything with you or do any or be around certain kinds of people, it has those people have to make me look good. Or anything that I'm doing, it has to make me look good, whether it is probably in a church environment or probably in um, a social gathering. So it always has to make themselves look good. Or even the fact that you're my boyfriend or you're my girlfriend or you're my spouse or any of those kinds of relationship dynamic. Your relationship with them has to make them look good. So that's on the grandiosity. Another sign I would mention here is the superficial thinking that they have. You see, narcissists are very, very concerned about what they look like, about people's perception about them. For the male, they want to be chiseled, they want to be tall, they want to groom themselves very well. They want to be the Spartacus or they want to be the Leonidas 300 kind of guys. You see them spending a lot of time at the gym, of all those kind of things. But outside all of the packaging, there's really nothing inside. They cannot give you love. They can't even really, sometimes they can't even um, engage you in an intelligent conversation. However, there are two kinds of narcissists. There are different kinds of narcissists, but I'll just mention two. You have the somatic narcissist, and then you have the cerebral narcissist. The somatic narcissist is who I just described right now. The person that is always thinking about his body or she's thinking about what she looks like and the rest of that. But the cerebral narcissist is the intelligent one, actually, is the one that depends solely on mental capacity. Now, another thing that you should really, really look at in or as signs of narcissism is they get angry easily. They throw tantrums easily for very, very trivial things where under normal circumstances you probably go bonkers trying to understand why is this simple thing causing a fight with this your significant other. Now, another sign is that they are very good at serving criticism. They can criticize you 24/7, 7 days a week. But the day you actually give them one very tiny, even with the most gentle, how was that word they use? Is it sandwich method?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Sandwich.
Sandwich
Sandwich
constructive
evaluation,
criticism,
sandwich feedback.
sandwich evaluation. No matter how gentle you present it to them, no matter how innocent you present it to them, they cannot take it. They would they would either raise their voice, they would either avoid you, or there's something part of the things that they do. What's it called? Ghosting. So if you
Okay.
do things like this to them, or if you give them some bit of little criticism, either they'll lash out at you, or they will just ghost you. Ghosting means they just fall off the radar for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 1 week, a month. It depends. They just ghost you just because you spoke out of turn, and they will expect you to say sorry for it. Now, that is why they ghost you or they actually lash out at you. They expect you to say sorry for what they did.
Wow.
Now, they can also be very, very jealous. They can also be very, very jealous. Something that you're not doing, something that you are not doing, they could actually accuse you for doing those things. They, let's say you're you're doing a workers retreat. Let's say you're doing a workers retreat, and then they see you with another girl or another guy, but nothing is going on. They will just tell you you're cheating on them.
Wow.
So these are the signs of narcissism or people with cluster B personality disorder. There are other things. There are other things.
I can imagine. So how many of these does a person need to exhibit and be tagged a narcissist?
I wasn't actually counting how many I gave out, but I think the first 6 or so that I mentioned, for me, those are the things. If I'm able to identify all these 6, I'll just put a bullseye on you that okay, this person is the narcissist.
Interesting.
Or,
Interesting.
Yeah. And then
so,
if this person is somebody I cannot completely walk away from, I have to start learning how to manage the situation or managing my expectations with the person or setting very solid boundaries with the person.
Interesting. So, like you just mentioned, walking away. Sometimes, even if we have identified these flags, we find out that we are still somewhat in a relationship with them. How do we get out of this relationship? How do we manage the relationship if we can't get out of it entirely, like you just said?
So before somebody actually decides to get out of a relationship, I think the person should have his own list of deal breakers before he or she actually decides to get out of a toxic or an abusive relationship. So one of them would definitely be physical abuse. If you're in a relationship with a partner that slaps you or beats you or twists your arm or kicks you, gets you bloody for no just reason, or the person's reasons are not justified, I mean, you need to actually walk out, because narcissists definitely, they do things like this, and you cannot endure those kind of things. Now, the second thing would be verbal and emotional abuse. Verbal abuse would be the person is tearing you down. This person is actually calling you names. There's something called name calling. You cannot accommodate things like that. They might say, "Hey, you're the best person one day," but probably 7 a.m. in the morning, that's what they are saying. But by 3 p.m. in the evening, or in the afternoon rather, they are already calling you names or devaluing you or giving you the silent treatment. Silent treatment is maybe after maybe you've done something to them that, or you said something that they don't like, they decide to be quiet on you for like 2 days. They don't take your calls. They don't visit. They don't accept any kinds of invitations from you for like 2 days, 3 days, month, 4 weeks, depending on them.
Yeah.
The next thing that is the most problematic for people that actually could bring people to their knees is financial abuse. So this is one deal breaker people should not really take lightly. And I'll talk about it in two folds. One, let's say they parenticize you. How do I mean? They make you provide for all of their needs. They make you pay for their house rent. They make you pay for all of their bills without them finding ways to actually earn their own resources. And while they are doing this, they're not even contributing to you. They might say, probably cook for you or probably bed you or some of all those kind of things, which is not going to cost them anything, basically. So if they are not also reciprocating what you're doing for them, then that is a very, very sure sign that you're being used. The other side is where they want you to depend on them completely for finance. They want you to they don't want you to work. You get. So this is now from the male perspective. The other one I was describing, the first instance could be the male or the female, but this one is more typical with the males.
Yeah.
Where they don't want you to work. They want to be able to control everything about your life. Then there is a thing of child abuse where they beat your child. They don't really care. Um, they manipulate your child, or um, basically child abuse. Let's say you're a single mom now. You're a single mom, and then you get involved with a narcissistic guy, or you're a single guy and get involved with a narcissistic woman. They could actually manipulate your child against you, or beat your child, or show no empathy towards your child. So these are things you really, really want to look into. And then there is the issue of infidelity. Serial infidelity is a major problem, and that is one thing that they do a lot.
Okay, interesting.
So
So,
anybody that finding themselves in this kind of situation, I mean, you should you should understand that you deserve respect,
yeah,
and if these things are happening, this particular individual doesn't respect you in any way, it's time for you to say, this is the deal breaker. I'm not going to accept. I'm not going to tolerate it. If you do not stop, if you do not change, I'll have to actually bring the consequences.
oh, wow. Thank you, thank you. So now, let's say you've successfully gotten out of that relationship. There is the question of, do victims of this abuse ever actually heal completely? Um, do they ever get to entirely love and trust other people?
Yeah, it totally depends on the person, the individual, the person's constitution, and the person's dedication to the healing process. So, how do you let go of the past? First of all, if you bottle it up, if you don't tell anybody anything, you're not going to get solutions. So, the first way to actually move on is you talk about it, you talk to someone, although not everybody, because not everybody is going to be able to provide you with proper solutions. So you should be able to speak to someone that is experienced in something like this as well, or maybe a counselor, a professional coach, or that is trained in this kind of aspect. And then there's this other thing that I personally did was journaling, where I wrote down some of the things that I went through, especially the things that I didn't even like at all, so that it reminds me of why I
Walked
cut it
out.
off in the first
Yeah.
place. Yeah, and then there is this incessant need for revenge. That is a very horrible place to be, because you'll be obsessing over the fact that you want justice, and if you're not seeing that justice play out, you want to actually move the hand of God, or take matters into your own hands, and ensure that justice is actually being served. You don't need that kind of junk. You don't need that kind of thinking, because it's almost like when you're fighting someone, and even though you're having the upper hand and you're pinning the person down, you are also being pinned down as well, because you cannot move on.
Mm.
So you need to actually let go of revenge, and then seek guidance. Guidance, like I mentioned, from either spiritual leaders that you can trust, that understand these kinds of situation, or professional coaches. And then another very important thing that you should do is either you start cultivating new relationships. I didn't say relationship, not,
Yeah.
and I'm not talking about romantic relationship, because you're still in the healing process.
Yeah.
Want to actually go out there and start putting yourself out there to attract another knock into your life. What you want to do is, because you would have noticed that the narcissist would have probably caged you or isolated you from other friends. You would have probably no longer talking to your best buddy from university, or
Yeah.
from any place that you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you want to start cultivating those kinds of relationships again, and also building new habits, new experiences. If you were not into, if you're not into, let's say, paintballing before, like recently, I realized I love paintballing. If you're not the adventurer, you need to start traveling, doing tourism, just have new experiences. If you didn't know how to visit restaurants, go to restaurants, have fun, just live life and stop sulking. Because what this happens, and it definitely will happen, is something called the Hoover. I don't know if you know what a Hoover is. A Hoover is a technique that they do to actually suck you back in.
Okay.
So, have you heard of at least you know vacuum cleaners?
Yeah.
So that's where that term came from, where the narcissist is trying to suck you back into being in a relationship with them. So once they notice that you've moved on in life, they will try to come back. Maybe some other time we'll talk about this Hoover and how to actually protect yourself from
Getting sucked back in.
then yeah, so they will definitely because they're always watching. They're watching if you're getting better, if you're still down in the dumps. So if you're down in the dumps, they'll probably not Hoover you because you're not exciting enough for them. But if they notice that you're healing and you're becoming a better person and you're having new experiences without them, they get enraged. They don't like the fact that your life is getting better without them. So they will come back. First of all, they might do the heat check, trying to know whether whether your state of mind is still um, turbulent towards them, or you're still angst about what happened to you. So the way heat check, if they notice that you're okay, you're no longer angry, you probably let it slide, and they will now come back trying to cover you strongly by loving you. Hey, I just realized you're really the man for me, or you're really the woman for me. I actually made a mistake. That's when you have this grand divine epiphany that I was actually a jerk when I did this to you, or I walked away from you, or you know, stuff like that, just to make you stop.
So, from what you said, are we making the assumption that narcissists never change?
A great deal of them never do. It takes a great deal of them never do, but it takes a lot of work on their own part. Now, there's something I heard about the rubber band effect. Even though you actually get a narcissist to sit in therapy or trying to improve themselves, the moment there is stress in their life, they snap back to their default setting. So if you decided that you're going to be with this narcissist, one thing that you should always keep in mind is manage your expectations. You do not expect them to be saints, because this is who they've always been all of their life. And if you know that you cannot deal with this anymore, it's something that you need to actually move on, walk out. Just might be difficult because of the trauma bonds that has been developed between you and this particular person, but you just need to work on yourself first, and then try as much as possible to avoid that torment in your head that says you have to get back for you to get back for you to be happy. Just ignore it and try to move on. Get the free part too. The fact that you moved on is also going to cause narcissistic injury to the narcissist. In fact, there's something many people believe that the narcissist always get karma. They always get something. They will get justice. Now, in my own case, I wanted to see it happen, but I didn't need to. Exactly what's happening. In fact, for every narcissist, karma always catches up with them. God always has a way of dealing with them, one way or the other. And it's probably even going to start from where first they walk away from them. And they know it. That's why they always do as they always try to take as much as they can before you leave them. They know it. Even if they are with a new person, they know that that particular person too is going to leave them one day. That is why they always have other people lined up just in case of this kind of scenarios. So how do you protect yourself from these kind of people? You need healthy boundaries. There is something called the three strike rule, where if you do this kind of a thing again, let's say if you take my money again without letting me know you are going to do this, you let them know the consequence. And then if they do it the first time, sometimes the second time is even too much before you decide to enforce your boundary. So whatever you say you're going to do as the consequence, we need to actually do it. If it means I'm not going to talk to you again, if you talk to me in this manner, you have to do it. If you ever sleep with somebody else again, I am going to walk out of this relationship. I'm not going to stay. So you have to learn to enforce your boundaries. Now, another thing that you need to learn how to do in protecting yourself from narcissism is detach emotionally. When you detach emotionally, anything that they do, whether they are trying to tell you, hey, life is better, or I am with this new boyfriend, or with this new girlfriend, and she's so great, she's even better than you. She takes me out, or he takes me out, or he buys me this, or she, just emotionally detached. Do not let it concern you, because if you do, they're probably trying to triangulate you with that person again, and then you're trying to now prove to them that, oh, you are actually really good, you are actually the better lover.
Yeah.
Truth of the matter is, it's not true. They are not happy with that new supply or that new partner. They are not happy. They hate the fact that you left them in the first. So you need to actually detach emotionally. And then there's another thing called gray rock, where no matter what they do or say, it doesn't concern you. Just say, okay, I do, and then life goes on. There are different ways to actually execute gray rock. You just make your research and find out how to do gray rock. Now, there's one golden thing. In fact, it's one of the first things that people recommend. I think 100% of anybody that talks about breakups with anybody that is a narcissist or even a normal human being, what they do is tell you no contact. Now, with the normal human being, no contact after 30 days is going to make the normal person miss you and probably reconsider, I need to get back with this person. Get back with this person. But with the narcissist, if they're missing, if they're missing you, it's not, they don't miss people the way most people miss other individuals. They miss people as object, because what they miss is how you make them feel, how much money you used to give to them, how much sex you used to give to them, or how much or the kinds of service that you used to provide them. That's what they are missing. Now, I'm not talking only about romantic relationships. You can have no contact. The narcissist was actually your mother, or your former boss, or your father, anybody. Go no contact. The reason you're doing no contact is not to punish the narcissist. It's not to make the narcissist realize how great of a person that you are, but it is to protect you. And protect you from the kinds of manipulation that they could come back with, or trying to get you back into the situation that you were in before. So if no contact is working, probably you need to change your phone number, take your location, and just make it impossible or difficult for the narcissist to reach out to you. I know no contact and probably change your phone numbers and location might be difficult if you're sharing, if you have a family with the person. So that's where you have to now adjust it a little bit. If you must contact the person, maybe because of the child's health care or child's school fees, then leave the conversation either via text message or email, and straight to the point. Do not start saying things like, I miss how things used to be with us, and all. Don't. Just stick to business.
Wow. Wow. That's been a lot of information, a lot of learning. Thank you so much.
I've said so much that I even feel like I feel exhausted myself.
Thank you.
All right.
We really enjoyed
Yeah.
having you today. We look forward to having you in the future as well. That brings us to the end of
Yeah.
our
I look forward to coming back.
series, actually. And I'm sure there will be more topics where we could bring you
Yeah,
on
there
to
will.
help
There
share
are.
some expertise. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your commitment. Thank you also to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for always listening week in, week out. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate each and every one of them. We look forward to more and more of this feedback. We hope that you guys tell us what you liked, what you didn't, what you enjoyed and didn't. And for those of
And
you,
also how you've experienced something like this. I think we'd like to see your testimonies more as
definitely,
well.
definitely your testimonies and
And how you're dealing with how you're leaving the relationship, or were you down, or did you jump to narcissist, and how you deal with your recovery. Did you get into another relationship that was narcissistic as well, and all the kind of things?
yep,
Let's know. Let's know. Let's know how it
definitely.
turned out for you.
Definitely. And for even those that might still be struggling with it, feel free to reach out for help.
Yeah.
Feel free to get in touch with any of the numbers. And if you do not want to reach out to us, there are professionals out there, like the speaker said today, and many other people who can help. However, be careful about who you approach so you make sure that you're actually getting the right kind of help. Thank you very much for tuning in today, guys. Look forward to seeing you again, well, talking to you again next week. Have a lovely week. Thank you.